Gerhard, thank you so much for inviting me to the summit. What a great couple of days, and the thought leaders and speakers, and it's really amazing to be here. So I'm really excited about this. And the topic I want to talk about, like last year when we sponsored, I talked about elevating talent on the front lines, and that's something that has been happening over a number of years, is where companies are trying to do the most important thing, engaging with their most senior stakeholders and putting the absolute most inexperienced low cost person on the front lines to do that. Today I even saw a company that I know has very complex operational technology, and they're looking for someone with the lowest skill set. And that's not going to get you where you need to be. And now we have this version 2 of there's AI out there. So you want to use it as an individual. You want to know how to do this so that you can become more. So you don't want to go down this path of this reductive type of activity in sales, but you want to make yourself worth more effective. You'll make more money. One of the things that I've been seeing is, all of us get emails. So I own a marketing agency. I get a ton of B2B outreach from marketing tech, sales tech. And I can always tell if they're using AI because their emails are off. Say, oh, I want to congratulate you on this thing. And it's like some award I won like 5 years ago or something. So, that is not adding value. So that's another way of doing things kind of sloppy. And some of that is just the way that it's set up. The goal of the outreach, they're just thinking, oh, we'll just send 10,000 emails and see who bites. But that actually just creates more barriers, more obstacles in sales. Like we've tried some of those things when it first came out. And for us, that was rough. So, we use AI in a way to be very precise with what we do. We're not using it to impersonate us, and we're not using it to, take shortcuts without verification. So that's what's important. And the reason that AI is so important right now, and I wanted to talk about some adoption statistics because this is kind of mind blowing. That just ChatGPT is really what exposed everybody to generative AI. So AI has been around for a long time. We've been working in the space for a long time with clients, but to be available to the general public and to end users and companies, that's been about 2.5 years. And so ChatGPT, they've got this huge volume of users. So Google took over a year to get to 1 million users. The CRM took 5 years to become a mainstream adopted tech. ChatGPT hit 1 million users in 5 days. They hit 100 million users in 2 months. So the actual adoption curve is unmatched by anything. So, by iPhone, by Facebook, Instagram, whatever. It's like, this is something unprecedented. And it's rapidly being adopted in companies. And so you want to be there. You don't want to be a laggard in that. So I know there's other sales tech that a lot of companies were laggards about. This is what can actually help you to get in front of sales cycles, and you don't want to be a laggard around adopting things that make you better. So the thing that I want to talk about is, how can AI help you to do more, not less, and really leaning into this skill as an individual. So, I often talk about the front lines because that's where stuff falls apart. So you've got this kind of digital journey. Even if you have these amazing, level of AI environment in the background that's doing your digital marketing, if it gets to a person and it falls apart, that's it. And that happens all the time. So I want to address that frontline human interaction piece, because that's where you lose a ton of deals from everybody doing their own thing, doing stuff different, and not really arming themselves with what can help them with a lot more precision and effectiveness. This skill right here is something to really lean into, because it's going to make you more valuable to your company. You're going to make more money, and you're going to stay ahead in your development of skills that are necessary. Like if you look at job specs now in sales, you've got to use a CRM, and CRM adoption took a long time, like I just mentioned. And now it's like, you got to have that. You have to be able to work in a system. And AI isn't there yet, but it will be, because it's something that companies are going to rely on to be able to expand the reach of their reps. So I want to talk about like what's already out here. So there's already a lot of tech on the front line. So you've got voice AI, there's AI agents, account planning, and there's these tools that can analyze the meetings in such an amazing way and give you feedback, summaries. One thing I want you to remember is, with the video calls, a lot of times, and again, this is where you don't want it to make you less. A lot of times, reps will read the summaries and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I read the summary," but there were things that happened on that call that the tools aren't catching. So there's a lot of things that, for example, you're talking, it's like, "Oh, Dan made a weird face when you said this thing," or Sarah was totally checked out, or Stacy was making, looking really confused when you talked about this one thing. And then you can actually observe the exchanges. And that's where the human piece is so important, because if you just relied on text that made it sound like everything went great, you're going to totally miss the mark in your follow-up. So you gotta watch it. And it does take time, but in the big picture, it's going to take you less time, because you're not spending a bunch of time trying to chase them down, having stuff fall apart. They went quiet, all that kind of stuff. Another thing that you can use it for now is, understanding the sales landscape. There's so much that you can learn about companies, like analyzing annual reports and analyzing the company and where they're at and public sentiment and all these different things about them. Like, we've actually built GPTs for our customers, where they're addressing really specific things that gives everybody a jump start in understanding the account. Something that happens all the time, and this still happens. And so there's kind of these parallels of technology really accelerating, and then these practices that just are like crash and burn kind of stuff that happens is still happening. And it happens even more because there's more B2B outreach. So the thing that happens is there's these breakdowns between interactions. And it doesn't matter if you're outsourced, in-house, whatever. If you've got somebody making outbound calls, building relationships, and then bringing in account executives and getting them on board and engaging them, there's often huge breakdowns right there. I've seen it as a prospect, like maybe, and I'll remember one specifically that I'll mention, talked with the guy that called. I thought he was the rep. It was great. We had this great call, and then we ended. I said I'd have the meeting. I told him really specifically what I wanted to talk about, why I was willing to have the meeting. There were some nuances. Totally understood the tech, but there was, kind of some conditional interest. And so then he says, "Okay, great. I'm going to connect you with the VP." And I'm like, "Oh, great. Okay." So then we get on the call, and this VP gets on, and he just starts asking all these really basic questions again. I'm like, "Did you have any notes or anything from our conversation?" And the thing is this is an engagement tool, and they're like doing opposite of good engagement right now. And he's like, "Yeah, I just, I'm going from call to call." And I just thought, wow, okay. I'm not going to tell you anything about my internal tech stack. And there were some really specific reasons that I was interested in this. And so why don't you go do the research, and then we'll just kind of regroup, because this isn't a good use of anybody's time. Because I'm in the business I'm in, I've got probably a much lower threshold than other people, but it's like that kind of stuff happens all the time. And so with the AI capabilities of capturing data, transferring knowledge, keeping it with the account, you can avoid things like that. Um, and so, I was looking at some stats of how understanding AI and how to be a really proficient user is impacting things. In this KPMG study, they said that it is going to be key for retention. And that's the thing, is when you are able to have this skill set, that's going to become a high value skill set. That's going to make you worth more because they're going to see it in the results and you're going to see it in the results. So, one of the things um, here to talk about, because again, there's this fast track of adoption on one side, and then there's things on the other side that are not happening. So, okay, we've got this rising adoption. So there were 81% of sales teams that are using at least one tool with AI. And a lot of times, a lot of vendors are bundling that in now, so you kind of automatically get it. And that's great, but it is growing in significance, and companies have more trust with that. Like, I do notice that companies are more apt to adopt something that one of their vendors has than going out and building it themselves and bringing it in. In fact, in companies, I'm seeing a lot of companies that have they've got a more measured approach. They have a very conservative approach to adopting AI. And so they're not going to be building anything. They might buy it because that kind of fast tracks some security questions and things like that. But it's the misconception is that it's not going to replace you. So, there's this whole thing of, AI is going to take over the early sales cycle. It's going to displace SDRs. It's going to do this. It's like, no, it's not, because people that you're prospecting to don't want to talk to a machine. So if you're in tech, we all get it. We're in tech. I'll get on a website. I'm trying to buy something, whatever. It's like I'll interact with their bot to get my questions answered. But, the people that you're talking to in these industries that are not early adopters and that are taking this very conservative approach, or they're even afraid of it, they're not appreciating that. They are not appreciating the idea of interacting with a bot. So that's the thing that will always need a person involved. Like, I was just watching this a video. There's a company called Mega AI. They're so cool. And they're doing some really amazing things in some critical services, for the public. And, they were saying it's not going to replace humans. You're always going to need a skilled human that has empathy, that's able to engage. What AI can do is it accelerates your reach and your capability. And that's really the correct way to look at it, not in a fearful, it's going to take my job. I'm not going to adopt it. I'm not going to use this because, I'm going to keep all the information and hold the information. So, that's not going to help. That's actually going to make your role obsolete if you do that. And I'll give some examples about that. Like, the reality of adoption is, there's really not a lot of people that are using it individually. So, 28% are using it for work-related stuff. So maybe they're using a GPT at their company. They might have Copilot or something like that, or maybe they've got a Teams GPT or whatever it might be. And then 10% of those are using it every day. So that's not that much. There's also issues that have been longstanding that are still longstanding, and that's CRM adoption. That's still a problem. So, instead of worrying about AI is going to replace you, it's like not using the CRM is a bigger problem, because companies, they want to use AI to measure activity in companies, but that's kind of like a garbage in, garbage out type of scenario. And if you don't have any kind of compliance or governance management of data in your CRM, that's not going to get you the kind of output that you want from your AI tools. And the thing that AI can help you with is it can help you to be able to have that compliance, because, I remember back when CRM was really new, and it was so hard for people to use it because they weren't used to having to key in stuff. A lot of sales reps, even in tech, they're not they're not super techy to be able to get in there and navigate a bunch of stuff and run reports. I mean, their deal is selling. They know how to sell. I had one company, and it was a very technical company, but their rep was not using their CRM. And I remember asking him, "How are you managing our stuff if you're not using the CRM?" And he said, "Well, I print it and I put a dot up here at the top if I have one call, and then I put another dot." And I'm thinking, okay, this dot system is like not going to work, right? But there's versions of that today that are still happening, and that's something that companies have to look at. So instead of like freaking out about AI, it's like you have to make sure that you've got a data environment. And how can AI help that? That can help, like your notes and summaries from your voice AI. You can have that populate your CRM. It does take a lot of time, and that's something that I look at. Like if we're adopting a new technology, I want to see how much time does it take to use this? How much time does it take to learn it? And how much time does it take to use it? Because, like some tools that are very popular aren't good for us just because there's so much, so many views you have to go through and pages and clicks and everything. And it's like, you can spend 10 minutes in an account. That's not a good use of time. So we always look for things that are very fast and that you can move through them very fast. And that's something that AI can help you with. So it can help you get more information. It can help you be able to populate that. And as a rep, it's not like holding on to the information makes you worth more at this point. Because I mean, that was kind of the feeling years back, right? Where it's like giving away all your work, putting it in a CRM, and then they just take the account away or something happens or whatever. But it's at this point, it's your ability to be able to leverage that data and act on that data that's important, not that you have it. There's one thing that I found here that I thought was really interesting is AI doesn't make people lazy. It amplifies whatever mindset they have. So this is going to be where hiring comes in. So I was talking about elevating your talent on the front lines. That's going to be part of it. Are you actually digging in and learning this stuff, or are you just using it to write an email for you and you just send it and then it sends something wrong? Because it does make mistakes. I'll give you a recent mistake is I was asking it about a certain technology industry, and I said, who are the players in this? And it spit out this list of names, and the biggest one wasn't on there. And I said, how come this one isn't on there? And they said, I'm sorry. And so it apologized very conversationally, but it's like, it's still going to make mistakes. And that's why you can't rely on it. And that's, these emails that are going out with weird stuff in it. That's the kind of thing that happens. That's what turns people off. It turns prospects off. It turns companies off, all that kind of stuff. So you really want to avoid things like that. The team you have today. So there's always this kind of dream team, like, oh, we're going to implement this, we're going to do that. Okay, what are you working with today? So today is you want to see how everybody's using it. Just because it's available doesn't mean they're using it. And you don't want to get on all this micromanaging thing where you're looking at what everybody's doing, but ask them. Because if you've got 10 reps, you've probably got 10 different use cases of how they're using the AI tools that you do have available. Even if they're just standard ones, even if it's things in your CRM, or if you have some voice AI, or if you've got some kind of, if you have some sort of GPT that you're pulling information from, everybody's doing something different with it. Some might be using projects in GPT and Chat GPT, others not. Others, like one of the things somebody mentioned, another very popular AI that does deep research. It's not DeepSeek, but it does deep research, but it instantly forgets everything you told it. So, personally, I like ChatGPT because it learns over time and it retains things. So, that's another thing that companies can learn at is, what's going to be the shelf life of the information. So, using something that instantly forgets, that might be good for some deep research, but it's not going to be good for, long-term retention if you don't put that information somewhere. So again, you've got to learn yourself. And this has just been like any other sales training type of thing where a lot of people wait for the company. And it's like, well, my company hasn't done this for me, or I haven't had any sales training. And there's a huge percentage of companies that don't provide sales training. They provide product training, but they're not giving you like deep dive, like kind of social dynamics, how to read the room, read between the lines kind of sales training. So, um, you've got to do this yourself and you have to invest in yourself. So you can do that on I just named a few here. I did some searches on here. There's literally thousands of courses on Coursera, LinkedIn, edX, Udemy, all of that. You've got so much access to information. There is zero excuse to not understand prompting. And that's really what you need is prompting. Because a lot of, I kind of look at this sort of like marketing automation. Like when marketing automation first came out, a lot of people were just using it to send emails. So they go spend like 50 grand on a thing just to send emails. But really, you need to get in there and create a workflow. And there's a lot of complex elements to it that you have to know. And it's the same thing with AI. There's a lot of complexity to prompting, and you have to know how to prompt. So how do you engineer the right prompts so that you get the information? Your output is only as good as your input. And so the more depth you can add, the more insight, the more traits, how do you want to view this? Do you want to view it from your prospect standpoint? How would your prospect view things like this? There's so much that you can get. It's really amazing. And so you want to understand how to have that deep prompting knowledge so that you can use it effectively and not just to do, really basic things. There's also insight into individuals. So you've got your overview of companies. You can analyze their annual reports or their industry and challenges and all these different things. But then you can get to who's in the room. And there's a lot of different tools out there that you can use, but Agent AI has some really cool stuff. And I'll show you one output from that. But you can drill down so much that you can find the company landscape, what's going on in there, how you want to present, why this is the right thing to talk about. And then you can get to everybody that's in the room and you can say, okay, here's all the people in the room. Here's what I know about them and how should I present so I address everybody in this room. There's something that I've used for years, which is based on the HBDI, the Herman Brain Dominance Instrument, where there's kind of these 4 quadrants of people and how they think. And it's not really, it's not role-based. It's just how they consume information as a person. And, so you've got your analyst logic person and your kind of creative spatial thinking person, your operational task oriented, your relational kind of people oriented person. And DISC is similar to that. And so how do you present so that you're covering all your bases so that nobody's losing interest or wondering? That's something I have my team take when they join us because I want to understand how to communicate with them. If I can understand kind of how they're consuming information. And so you can actually automate that now. And I'll show you a profile, like if you're going to use DISC, for example. So here is Gerhard's DISC profile. So I just used his LinkedIn and I put it in here on Agent AI. And there's an executive DISC profile that you can get. And so you can do this with everybody in the room. And then you can do it with the company. So you can prompt this whole thing so that you've got a meeting structured, probably 30 minutes. You can put the whole thing together versus hours of prep with a ton of blind spots. And I'm not saying this is totally correct. I've known Gerhard for many years, so this sounds kind of correct. But this is really an amazing type of tool because it's so multidimensional in what it can give you. So really, it's embracing AI is it's not going to make you less. It's not going to make um, it's not going to replace your job. It's not going to replace early engagement. Um, but the more you know, and the more you empower yourself, and the more that you upskill yourself, that's what's going to make money for you. Because just like how with CRM adoption, like, years back, it was kind of a nice to have. Now, nobody's going to hire you if you don't know how to use a CRM. It's like, it's not our job to teach you something that's been around 20 years, right? And that's what's going to happen with AI. And if you look at the adoption curve, it's so much faster. So we're going to reach that level where that's a requirement. And if companies are using it and the more they adopt it, the more they're going to require that the team uses it too. So here's my information. I wanted to put this here for everybody. I'll make myself small so you can see it. And yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn. I've already been getting a bunch of connections, so this is awesome. Connection requests from the summit. I'm on X. Reach out to the company. Really excited to be here, and I will look forward to continued conversations with everybody. So have a great time. Gerhard, thank you again. I really appreciate this opportunity, and have a great rest of the day.